What's going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. Welcome back to a match preview. It's Nottingham Forest versus Manchester United in the Premier League Sunday at the City Ground. Yes, this is a really interesting one, considering obviously the fallout from the Sevilla game this past Thursday and considering the injuries and who I guess we're not going to have during that game. It's a really important game for the top four race, and it's an important game for Nottingham Forest when it comes to the race against relegation from the Premier League. Now, we've got to start off first talking about Lisandro Martinez and Rafael Varane. I know we've spoken a lot about them over the course of the last 48 hours or so after the 2-2 draw against Sevilla, but late last night we did get an update on really what was going on with Martinez and Varane. There's been a lot of speculation. There'd been reports from Argentina saying that Martinez had suffered a broken metatarsal. Less news really about Rafael Varane. In Erik ten Hag's press conference yesterday, when he was asked, he said when they had an official diagnosis, when they had actual news, they would let us know. And Erik ten Hag, I guess, is a man of his word, because they did indeed let us know. They released the following statement late last night saying, quote, "Lisandro Martinez has been ruled out for the remainder of the season after fracturing a metatarsal bone in his foot. However, the Argentinian defender is expected to make a full recovery in time to be ready for the start of next season." Martinez sustained the injury in the 86th minute of Thursday night's 2-2 draw with Sevilla in the quarter-final of the UEFA Europa League. Lisandro's defensive partner Rafael Varane was also substituted with an injury at half-time in the same game and is expected to be out for a few weeks. So, obviously, the Martinez one we knew. I think most people knew that Martinez was going to be out of action for the remainder of the season. I mean, it'd have been frankly, a minor miracle, really, had Martinez not been out of action for the remainder of the season. I think looking at that from the perspective of how bad we thought it was, this is most likely one of the better case scenarios, and one of the better scenarios that I think people had hoped for is that, yep, Martinez is out for the remainder of the season. Massive, massive, massive blow. I mean, he's been invaluable and he's been a revelation since signing for us from Ajax earlier this season. But when initially people thought it was his Achilles, that's a 6 to 9 month injury, and he's not coming back until midway through next season or even towards the end of next season. So the fact that we're going to be able to start next season with Lisandro Martinez back, that's a positive. Obviously, him not being available for the remainder of the season, that's a negative. That's an issue, because I think it's probably a fair bet to say he's been our best defender this year. And obviously Varane's played very well, and he's Rafael Varane. But I think Martinez has been a constant. Martinez has always been really a catalyst for better defensive performances that we've seen in the majority of our games. I know we've had some quite big defeats, which he has played in, but it's really his tenacity, it's his aggressiveness, and it's his real desire sometimes, and particularly in the last couple of months where we haven't been playing at our best in certain games. When we have made it through, it's been because of people like Martinez doing blocks, making tackles. In those games where we weren't playing particularly pretty, Lisandro Martinez was arguably United's man of the match in all of them, and that just shows how important he is. And when it comes to build-up play as well, we've got nobody that can do that. We've got nobody that can build up the play from the back like Lisandro Martinez, so obviously that's a massive miss. Rafael Varane, they were really vague in that statement, really vague. Again, the positive is that he's not out for the remainder of the season, but they say he's going to be out for a few weeks. Now, reports, I believe it was from James Ducker from the Daily Telegraph, were saying that it's expected he'll be out of action for 3 weeks. So realistically, it's a race against time to see if he can make it back for the FA Cup semi-final. That's next week. If they're saying 3 weeks, that basically means he's not going to play against Brighton at Wembley, which leaves us with a massive problem, because we've got one centre-back that's available for that game. You know, Martinez, Varane and Harry Maguire are all out for that game. Maguire suspended, Martinez and Varane are injured. So you're looking at Victor Lindelof and possibly a Luke Shaw for an FA Cup semi-final. That's quite concerning. However, if we do manage to get to the finals of the FA Cup and the Europa League, then maybe Rafael Varane could be back for that. That's again the hope, I think, for Manchester United, but they don't really know the severity of this, and this could be a situation whereby there's a hope that he'll be out of action for a couple of weeks and he can make it back right for the end of the season, but you never know how these things work. These things get extended, they go on, they get worse, they get aggravated, so that's the latest when it comes to the centre-backs. So we know who's going to be playing at centre-back, my point is, tomorrow at the City Ground. We know it's going to be Harry Maguire, and we know it's going to be Victor Lindelof. Now, who's going to be playing alongside them? I would suspect it'll be Aaron Wan-Bissaka again. the game against Sevilla was a really curious one because, and this was pointed out to Ten Hag in the press conference, is that obviously, given the way the game ended, and given that it wasn't the result that we wanted, and given the sort of collapse and the two centre-backs going off injured and ending the game with 10 men, obviously it overshadows what were some positives in that game. And one of the biggest positives was Anthony Martial and the scoring of 2 goals from Marcel Sabitzer. But also, I thought Aaron Wan-Bissaka played very well. And in this point in time, it's a crazy thing to be even saying because it's so different from where he was prior to the World Cup in December. But for me, Aaron Wan-Bissaka is the starting right back for United. He's the number 1 right back. I think his form post-World Cup, and in fairness to Diogo Dalot, he's had a hamstring issue that he missed quite a few weeks with. But now that they're both fit and ready to go, I'd rather have Aaron Wan-Bissaka playing. And you can say, oh, you're such a flip-flop. Yeah, I mean, I am on that issue because he's playing well. Call me crazy, but I'd rather have the person that's playing well in that position. And at the moment, that's Aaron Wan-Bissaka. And I would continue having him to play against Forest. The only thing is, I suppose, is Ten Hag now looking at it thinking, next week's a really big week. And we've got that Sevilla game, which it was always important, but given the result now, it's going to be really challenging. And just a few days after that, we've got an FA Cup semi-final. So if I am going to make any rotational changes, it would have to be in this game. But at the same time, you can't take your eye off the ball in the Premier League because by no means is our top 4 position completely controlled. I mean, we're 3 points ahead of Spurs. We've got a game in hand, but things can switch around very quickly and we still have to play Spurs at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So we need to make sure we keep that gap as big as possible and hope that they slip up as well and we can get more space to breathe in. So, and again, I said this during the press conference stream, if we don't beat Nottingham Forest at the City Ground, no disrespect to them, we don't deserve to be in the top 4. And we have to be mindful that at this stage of the season, those teams that haven't been winning all season, whether it's home or away, they just start picking up victories. They start picking up results. Now, in the case of Forest, their recent form has been pretty horrific. I mean, in the last 5 games, they've got 4 defeats, 1 draw. They currently sit 18th in the league. There's been a lot of question around their manager's future. One would think now, honestly, they're really running out of time to make managerial changes. I mean, there's 8 games left for them. If they were going to make a change, they would have to do it quickly. And could even the person that came in, could they even really make a difference at this point? Even though it is very tight and making a difference is basically getting a win and they'd be out of the bottom 3. And actually, they get quite high up the mid-table because the relegation battle this year is a complete madness. So I think that's probably what they would be thinking is, yes, Manchester United are a good team, but they'll be looking at us as vulnerable and they'll be looking at us as weakened because we are, no doubt about it. Going back to what I was talking about, I'd have Wan-Bissaka playing right back. Luke Shaw, Erik ten Hag said in his press conference that there is a possibility that Shaw could be back in the squad. If it was me, I wouldn't play him. I wouldn't want to risk it. He's just suddenly, even with his absence, with the absence of Varane and Martinez, he's become a critical player now for us for the remainder of the season. Because arguably, there is an argument to be made here, guys. And let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this. There's an argument to be made now. He's our strongest centre-back left available this season. And I don't mean that as a disrespect to Lindelof and Maguire. I mean that he's played in big games this season, Luke Shaw at centre-back, and he's done well. I mentioned this a couple of times, and I said that Varane and Luke Shaw played centre-back against Manchester City and won. And I saw some people pushing back, saying, well, that was a different Man City. It's still Man City. Man City are always Man City. Even at their worst, that was a good team that he defended well against. Erling Haaland hasn't been shit throughout the entirety of the season. He's been very good throughout the entirety of the season. And Luke Shaw and Raphael Varane that day managed to man-mark him out the game. In addition to that, Luke Shaw and Raphael Varane played at the Nou Camp and got a 2-2 draw. We should have won that game. So Luke Shaw, for me, is our strongest centre-back now in the absence of Varane and Martinez. And because of that, I wouldn't play him tomorrow. I would save him for Thursday and save him for, obviously, the FA Cup semi-final. Now, obviously, there's an argument to be made about getting minutes and getting match rhythm going, and maybe Erik ten Hag may want to do that. And also as well, and this was something that Ten Hag kind of hinted at in the press conference, maybe you want to keep an eye on the Brighton game in the FA Cup semi-final because Harry Maguire can't play that game. So there could be an argument to be made if Shaw's available, then maybe you just play Shaw and Lindelof because you want to build up that relationship ahead of a big semi-final the following weekend. That's a point too. I don't think he'll do that. I think he'll go with Maguire and Lindelof, and maybe Shaw comes back for the Europa League game against Sevilla. But Shaw is going to be back. Other people that are going to be back, Scott McTominay is going to be back. I don't suspect he would start. I mean, if we're going with a back four then of Malacia, Maguire, Lindelof and Wan-Bissaka, in front of them, we've got midfield options, which is very, very positive. I wouldn't even be shocked if Christian Eriksen once again starts on the bench, honestly, because I thought the midfield was fine in the week, really. I would go with Casemiro, Sabitzer and Bruno Fernandes. I mean, if Sabitzer drops out, he's very unfortunate. He scored 2 goals against Sevilla and he played very well. Eriksen's still building up those minutes. The question would be, when does Eriksen start? Maybe it's against Sevilla on Thursday. Maybe it's in the semi-final against Brighton the following game. But I think there would be a strong argument to be made that he doesn't change the midfield. So I don't know if I necessarily expect to see any changes there. In terms of the attacking lineup, this is where it does get interesting because he was asked in the press conference, Erik ten Hag, about Martial and his ability to complete 90 minutes. And Ten Hag was very much stressing the need for caution when it comes to Martial, particularly with the injury issues that we now have with Rashford and Garnacho. The options are more limited than before. And given the games we've got on the horizon, we cannot afford, and we haven't been able to afford it all season, but particularly now, we cannot afford to have Anthony Martial missing from that Europa League game, that FA Cup semi-final, and the big games that come after that. Those games against Brighton away in the Premier League, against Spurs away in the Premier League, we cannot have Anthony Martial not playing those games. And we need him available for those games. So because of that, I don't think he'll start. And obviously he started against Sevilla Thursday. He was excellent, particularly in the first half. Got the assist for that second Sabitzer goal. But he said it in the press conference. You know, when the load is too high, we've seen he gets injured. So given what's on the horizon, I don't think Martial starts. I think that he starts against Sevilla on Thursday and then possibly also starts against Brighton in the FA Cup. I don't think he plays 90 minutes in any of them, honestly. If he were to play 90 minutes, it might be in the FA Cup semi-final, but that remains to be seen. So tomorrow, whilst I expect him to get minutes eventually, I think, unfortunately for some, it might be Wout Weghorst starting once again. Now, Weghorst did start against Nottingham Forest at the City Ground in the Carabao Cup. He even scored. But that was a different United side. That was a United side that had Marcus Rashford in it, opened the scoring in that game. It had Lisandro Martinez in it as well. So, you know, that was a different time, and that was at a point in time which we were in really good form and playing really good football after the World Cup. So I think it'll be Weghorst up front. Left-hand side, again, options are fairly limited in terms of no Rashford, no Garnacho, so it's Jadon Sancho, and I expect more. I thought he played well in the first half, like everyone, against Sevilla. Second half, you wouldn't even known he was on the pitch, honestly. Eventually he got taken off for Anthony Elanga, but he just looked like at one point he was running through treacle. He was so slow. His work rate wasn't there. I thought he looked lethargic and he just looked exhausted. And I don't know why, honestly, because let's face it, he doesn't have a massive reason to be, considering he hasn't played a ton of football this season. So we need more. We expect more. He was good against Everton and we need him to build on that. Again, I'm not sure he particularly built on that in the second half against Sevilla, but we need him to do that against Forest. Right-hand side, it'll be Anthony, who, again, I thought first half he was very, very good. I thought he was excellent against Sevilla in the week. And he played well against Everton the game prior. Just couldn't finish his dinner, really, when it came to being through on goal. We expect more from him. Ten Hag seemed a bit frustrated as well with saying second half against Sevilla he was getting unnecessarily involved with his opponent. Obviously, you don't want to take his personality away from him too much. That's what makes him him. But those players that maybe aren't having the best season, like your Sancho, like your Maguire and Lindelof, because they haven't played a ton of games. Even Malacia, who I think has had a good season, but against Sevilla I thought he was particularly poor. They've got to step up. And Ten Hag said it. You know, these players that maybe have been on the periphery, they have been waiting for their opportunity. Here is your opportunity. Take your opportunity. Prove people wrong. Because we don't want to be in a position, as a United fan, I don't want to be in a position where these players are proving me or you or us right by saying they're not good enough. We want to be coming out of this going, you know what? They haven't been playing very well, or I still have reservations about them, but today they were good, or today they stepped up, they got the job done. Because this game is a banana skin, despite the fact that Forest are one of the less informed teams in the Premier League right now. Despite the fact they're vulnerable, so are United. And make no mistake, this Forest side and the Forest coaching staff and the fans would have been much more confident in this game and getting something out of this game. Not even necessarily a win, but something out of this game coming out of that result on Thursday. They'd have thought to themselves, well, actually, you know what? Without Varane, without Martinez, without Rashford, without Garnacho, there's something there. It's there for the taking. And we need to make sure that we get the job done. Because as I said earlier on, this top four, it's far from nailed down. And, you know, we've kind of reacted in the Premier League after that loss against Liverpool and then, you know, drawing against Southampton and then losing once again against Newcastle. We bounced back with victories against Brentford and Everton, but we just cannot afford at this stage of the season, considering all the work we've put in, we can't afford to be slipping up in these kind of games. And our record away from home isn't great. You know, it's not great against sides that are sort of, you know, 12th and up, really, in the Premier League this season. But we have got away victories. We've got away victories over, shall we say, the lesser teams. The teams that are below Nottingham Forest, we got away victories at. We won at Southampton, we won at Leicester, and we should win at Forest. Again, not really bragging material because we should be. But it's going to be a really tough game, and I'm just hoping, I'm praying that those players step up. And I do think we need to have, maybe confidence isn't the right word, but I do think we need to have belief. I have seen over the last few days since the Sevilla result and since like the confirmation that Varane and Martinez are out for a long time and Martinez is out for the rest of the season and Varane's out for the rest of the season, that our season's over. We're not going to get top four. That remains to be seen. I can't really speak on that. What I can speak on is the game against Forest, and I say that, come on, you know, Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof, they might not be as good as Rafael Varane and Lisandro Martinez, but that team, De Gea, Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Lindelof, Malacia, Casemiro, Sabitzer, Bruno Fernandes, Sancho, Weghorst, Anthony. I know it's not our strongest team. By any stretch of the imagination, it is not our strongest team. But that still should be a team that is good enough and capable enough of going to the City Ground and getting a victory against the Nottingham Forest side that hasn't been playing well and is vulnerable at the moment. We still should be clinical enough and we still should have the mentality to get it done. And we've also got players on the bench that we can bring on as well, the likes of Christian Eriksen. That's what we need to do. We need those players to step up. We need those players to get the job done. And I feel that they can. Prediction, it's not going to be pretty. But again, having watched Forest recently, I still think we can get the job done, and I think it can still be relatively comfortable. So I'm going to go over 2-0 Manchester United victory. As I said, my concern isn't necessarily this game, and maybe that's me looking too far forward and not focusing on the present, but I still think United are good enough to get a result in this game, even if it's away from home and given the circumstances. My concern is not even necessarily Sevilla on Thursday, because again, I still think by that point you could have Rashford back, which is a massive plus. I still think we're good enough to get a result away from home against Sevilla because I wasn't impressed by them on Thursday. And had we had 11 men on the pitch, I don't think they win. They win. It felt like a win for them. I don't think they get their equalising goal. My concern is the FA Cup semi-final and some of those bigger away Premier League games that I think that might be the issue for us. But that's me looking too far ahead in the future. So I'm going to go over 2-0 United win. I don't think it'll be pretty, but I'm praying that these people that have come into the team are going to be able to step up. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. What are your predictions? What are your predicted lineups? Do you think United can get the victory? What are your thoughts as well on the Varane and Martinez injury? How badly, obviously, are we going to miss them this season? What are your solutions to that? What is the centre-back partnership you would like to see for the majority of the remainder of the season? Is it Maguire and Lindelof? Are we forced into that? Is it Luke Shaw and Lindelof? Is it Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire? Will we see even any changes tomorrow to the back line in terms of, we're assuming it's Maguire and Lindelof. Could we see Luke Shaw partner someone else because Ten Hag wants to build up that relationship and wants to build up that cohesion and chemistry prior to some big games? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.